Venezuela is insanely rich. Everyone knows it. Everyone drives a Lamborghini. Everyone lives in a mansion. They always eat $500 steaks for every meal. Everyone in Venezuela is the most rich person. The only problem with this wealth is that it doesn't exist at all, and everyone in Venezuela is actually extremely poor. But when you look at it, it really looks like Venezuela should just be wealthy because of how much oil it has. It has more oil than Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia is a rich country. But the way that Venezuela actually is, not that many people are really driving Lamborghinis around everywhere. Venezuela's economy is very dependent on oil. Oil made up over 90% of Venezuela export earnings, and everyone knows that having all your money in one resource is not a good idea. That's just a great way to go poor. Putting your entire life savings into a Home Depot stock and expecting to keep your money is not a good idea. Other countries have a lot of oil too, but they can still be rich. Like Saudi Arabia diversifies its economy, puts it into other things, and they don't end up having the same problem. Venezuela didn't really put any money into any other parts of the economy because they just assumed that the oil economy would be good enough for them to keep their entire wealth in. And when oil prices dropped in 2014, Venezuela's entire economy just collapsed. Other countries that were as wealthy as them had other facets of the economy that were doing just as well because they put investments into other parts. But Venezuela didn't do that, so they ended up regretting it. And this lack of good management doesn't just happen for no reason. And the reason is because the government handled the money badly. The government spent so much of their money on just short-term programs, they didn't even try to maintain their oil infrastructure, and it really failed to diversify the economy and make sure that it would keep going even when oil prices drop. Venezuela has also had a history of very authoritarian and not great leaders. Hugo Chavez was before Nicolas Maduro, and Chavez wasn't good because he ran a very authoritarian government style, and then when Maduro took over, it didn't get any better. Historically, there have been a lot of times when Venezuela was a great place to be in terms of South American standards. They had a lot of stuff going for them, they were wealthy, they had a lot of government programs, they had good infrastructure, but that nice nation just turned into a nation full of crime and poverty. Back when the Venezuelan economy was good, you'd look at it and think they were doing great. But the thing is, their economy was just so fragile because their entire economy depended on just one thing. And that is not the way you do an economy. And that collapse was huge. From 2013 to 2025, Venezuela lost 75% of their economy. The Venezuelan government basically just seized control of some of the oil projects from private international companies like ExxonMobil, and taking these companies and just trying to extract the oil themselves reduced operational efficiency and scared off necessary foreign investment. Because the big companies, the big dogs, know what they're doing a lot more than a random government. And the money they did get, instead of trying to grow their economy or reinvest it back into oil, they put it straight into programs that didn't really help stimulate the economy. And when their oil prices did tank and they didn't have all this money to spend on random programs, what they decided to do was they decided to print money to put towards these programs, which was one of the worst things they could have possibly done for their economy. And it's so bad because this caused hyperinflation. And this isn't just normal inflation that causes maybe 1 to 2% per year. That's normal in most governments. But Venezuela was clocking rates like 50 to 60% inflation in 1 year, which is horrible for an economy. That means if you have savings sitting around in anything, your savings are going to be completely obliterated by this inflation rate. This caused for a lot of Venezuelan people not wanting to save any of the money they've earned. And if no one's saving money, no one's going to have everything for retirement. This is very bad for an economy. The mindset at the time was just, when you earn your money, spend it instantly before it becomes completely valueless. And after a long time of this inflation, you needed stacks of money just to buy loaves of bread. If I had to bring 3 pounds of money just to buy a hairbrush, I don't think I'd have much faith in the economy either. And overall, the reason for this inflation is because the government was greedy and didn't really care about the public as a whole. They only really cared about what they were doing. And this is because their leadership tends to be horrible. Nicolas Maduro is a very bad leader to a country, and I feel like Jim Bowe from rural Pennsylvania could probably lead Venezuela better than Nicolas Maduro did. Another thing that happened is a lot of countries started to put sanctions on Venezuela, like the United States in 2017. And the US is a big oil consumer, so getting sanctions for them will never help you. And because of all this government mismanagement, a lot of people have just given up complete trust in their government. I wouldn't want to trust a government that has 1,000% inflation rates. Another factor is that Venezuela does have some very thick and hard to process oil. So these are all the factors that make Venezuela not as rich as they could be. I think the main theme is that their government was horribly managed, and so it made it very hard for them to do anything with such a bad government, with bad authoritarian leaders. Well, now that Venezuela is under new leadership, let's hope that it gets better. But oil production has been increasing. The number of barrels that they have produced has surpassed 1 million barrels a day. Companies like Chevron have expanded into the country, and this has helped surge the amount of oil they're producing. Venezuela's crude production has risen by 14% in just March of 2026, and it's rising even more. I'm hopeful that the new government will really make it a much better country than it was before.